Hello, everyone. Welcome and thank you for joining iTech's Lunch and Learn series, bringing insightful and inspiring educational programs through the virtual lens of the Israel Tennyson Education Centers. Just a quick housekeeping checklist. We ask that everyone stay on mute the entire call, so you can see it on your screen at the bottom left to make sure you're on mute at all times. And be mindful that you are on video so we see you. At the end, we will open the floor for questions, and you can submit your questions through the chat feature at the bottom of your screen, and Jackie Glodstein will ask on your behalf. Today, we will explore the challenges and opportunities that exist for Jewish and Arab relations in the state of Israel. We welcome Yoseph Haddad, a veteran of the Israeli army who continues to defend Israel by urging Jews and Arabs to integrate into Israeli society. And Dan Diker, an author and senior research fellow at Jerusalem Center for Public Affairs and iTech Global Business Board member. And we will also hear from Shadi Al-Tori, iTech alum from the Bedouin town of Rahat. So I'm now going to turn this over to Dan Diker.
Well, Wendy, thank you so much. And it's wonderful to see the whole iTech family together on Zoom, which the more we do this, it feels more and more like, you know, a family meeting in the living room, even though we're on both sides of the ocean. I remember as I watch Ian Froman take a drink, I remember back in 1977, Ian, when you first started bringing 78, we started bringing these delegations, let's say, teams of young children, an Arab child, a Russian child, an Ashkenazic child, a Sephardi child. And for me, as someone who had not yet been to Israel, it was really an eye-opener to see that Israel, as the nation state of the Jewish people, represents the culmination of Jewish, Christian, Muslim, Druze, Circassian cultures from the Middle East and cultures from around the world. People from 100 countries around the world coming together in this little teeny mini state, as you know, as a reconvening, if you will, for the third time in 3,300 years. Wow, what an incredible social experiment! And I was exposed to that and energized by that through the Israel Tennis Center and Ian Froman and Bill Lippy and Harold Landesberg in the very beginning and others. Having lived here for 30 years, very much inspired by the vision of Ian and Ruthie and in the Tennis Center. It has become very clear to me that today, 43 years later, the state of Israel is under an unprecedented conceptual attack as a pluralistic nation state with a Jewish majority, but that really is a rainbow nation state. That was the title of today's talk: Is Israel the rainbow nation state? And the reason we chose that title is that Mandela, the first president of the Free Republic of South Africa post-apartheid, has called South Africa the rainbow nation of the world. But I think that Israel really is the rainbow nation of the world, and I think that our guest today, Yoseph Haddad, may agree with me. I think one of the most stunning moments I've had in 30 years was watching Yoseph Haddad in South Africa in the beginning of the coronavirus, taking on the most difficult opponents and adversaries that Israel has in the BDS movement in South Africa. And you can go on YouTube. This has become one of the greatest viral programs on YouTube to watch Yoseph Haddad, an Israeli Arab Christian, defending Israel from these horrible charges of being a genocidal state, a racist state, an apartheid state, and so on. Yoseph Haddad is today one of the most important leaders in Israel, especially in the Israeli Arab community, and one of our great ambassadors anywhere that you can find in this country. So I want to introduce. I'm not going to go any further. I'm just going to introduce Yoseph, and Yoseph, I'll ask you just some questions, and you'll take it where you'd like to take. But I'd like you to share. Tell us about your background, your family, your growing up in Haifa and in Nazareth. Tell us about your family, how you became to become you.
So first of all, Dan, thank you very much for your kind words. And I would like to take this opportunity and say to everyone who's listening to me, thank you for being here. I'm very glad to participate and be part of this. So hello, first of all, to everyone. Second, I think this is the most important question about me. When we go and we ask why Yoseph is doing what he is doing today, the answer to it, it's actually my childhood. Because I was born in Haifa, I was raised in Nazareth, and Haifa is the biggest mixed city in Israel, and Nazareth is the biggest Arabic city in Israel. And the reason why I'm saying it, because I grew up in a diverse society, where for me, my friends were from the Jewish sector, Muslims, Christians, Druze, and that's how we grew up. And the most amazing thing is that we love to play football together. And we would go, I remember myself finish school, go as fast as I can to my home, make my homework, do my homework as fast as possible. Otherwise, my mom will let me go out, and then just take the bus, drive, take it to Haifa. And back then, you know, we're talking about 20, 25 years ago, a bus to Haifa, it was 25 minutes. Today, it's 25 hours with the traffic. So, but yeah, back then it was very short and easy. And I would just hang out with my friends. And when I say my friends, it's Jewish, Christians, Muslim, and Druze. So the common thing between us was we loved football. But we kept hanging together and go out together. And then we said, you know, we don't care about politics. We don't care about religion or ethnicity or your color of skin. And we saw that there's another one thing that it's actually bonding us, and it's a common thing between all of us. And the fact is that we are Israelis. So that's how we grew up. All of us, all this, you know, group of people, we grew up like this. And until today, if you go and talk to them, you would see that for them, this is the real Israeli society. So I want to jump to the age of 18. Keep in mind, everybody, that through my whole childhood, I was with all my friends, Jewish, Christians, Muslim, and Druze. And then when you come to the age of 18, my Jewish friends and my Druze friends, they had to go and serve in the army. For me, as an Israeli Arab, it's not obligatory. And that's why I don't have to serve in the army. But I asked why. I still asked why. Because for me, the last time I checked, the Israeli army called IDF, not the JDF. It's an Israeli defense force and not a Jewish defense force. And the part of the Israeli society is the Arab society. And to clarify that more, than just 1 month before I was supposed to start my service, I remember my friends asking me, are you sure of your path? Are you sure this is what you're gonna do? And I was always sure. I knew that I want to serve my country because I will serve my society, the Israeli society, both Jews and Arabs. And I always answered, yeah, I'm sure. But 1 month before I was supposed to start, before I started my service, a terrible event happened in Israel, specifically in Haifa, when a female suicide bomber came to the Maxim restaurant in Haifa, and she blew up the restaurant, ended up killing 17 innocent people and injuring dozens. 17 innocent people, 4 of them were Israeli Arabs. Now keep in mind, I'm 1 month before I was supposed to start serving in the IDF, in the Golani Brigade, as a fighter. At that moment, I realized that terrorism doesn't really care about if you are Jewish or an Arab. As long as you're Israeli, you are a target. So with this, I started my service. That gave me such a huge motivation to defend my country, to defend my society. And I'm gonna repeat that again and again. You're gonna hear me 1,000 times saying, when I say society, I'm talking about the Israeli society, both Arabs and Jewish. I wanna jump even 3 years later, because 3 years later, I participated in the Second Lebanon War. I was injured very badly in the Second Lebanon War. But before we talk about that, Dan, I want to give you an information that not a lot of people actually know that information. But during the Second Lebanon War, 44 civilians were killed by Hezbollah rockets. 50% of them were Israeli Arabs that killed by Hezbollah rockets. Some of those rockets fell on my city, Nazareth, the biggest Arabic city, killing babies, injuring innocent people, my city. So when my friends and some of my society, Arab society, Israeli Arab society, asked me, how do you feel going to Lebanon and fight Arab as an Arab? I said, I'm not going to fight an Arab. I'm going to fight a terrorist organization. I'm going to fight Hezbollah. Now, this is the shocking information, another information that I'm going to give you. When I was in Bin Jbel, it's a village in the south of Lebanon. When I was there, now keep in mind, we are an enemy. We're coming as an army to a strange or to a different country, not your country. Sort of like you're occupying the territory. You're taking control of the territory. So when we went to a house and the family of that house, a Lebanese family, stayed there, you would have expected a hatred and hostility from them. When the father of the house understood that I speak Arabic, he approached me and do you know what he told me? Please, win, because Hezbollah is not only terrorizing you guys, but Hezbollah is terrorizing us as well. And by the way, we are seeing that literally in the last few days. Huge and amazing and important things are happening, obviously from sad situation. But what's going on today with the Lebanese people is crazy. But this is a different topic. We can talk about it 1 hour alone. So what I'm trying to say is that when I was in the IDF, I was serving my country. And after that, Dan, when I was badly injured, my country never left me. Even until today, it's any time that I need some sort of a treatment, my country is there for me. And with that, I continued my life. And after rehabilitation, I've decided to devote myself to my society, to the Israeli society, because I felt that we are going backward. And I felt that we needed to do something about it. Because like my voice, there is a lot, Dan. But the problem is, if I can say that I'm unique in something, I'm unique only because I speak out loud. That's it. Because like me, there's a lot, Dan. And that's the huge difference.
Dan?
Mute. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Yoseph, why is it difficult for, if you're not an exception, and being your guest in Nazareth and spending time with you, I see that you're not an exception. You're an exceptional person, but there are many other exceptional members of residents and citizens of the state of Israel from all of the sectors. But why is it difficult for people to speak out and less difficult for you to speak out?
You know, I'm gonna say it, you know, a bit with how can I say that? When I joined the Golani, and then you will understand more why it's not so difficult for me. When I volunteered actually to Golani, people would ask me why you picked Golani Brigade, why you decided to go and volunteer for Golani Brigade, and I would answer that, one, it is the best brigade in the IDF, and second, maybe because I'm a bit crazy. And when I entered Golani Brigade, I understood that only crazy people go there. And then you become a huge family, okay? A huge crazy family, but that's what's special about the Golani Brigade. And that's why we are the best. I'm sure the paratroopers right now are going wild. No, we are the best. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is maybe I am a bit crazy, but put that aside. I think that I'm like this because I want badly to change the situation. And I think that I'm like this because my family supports me 100%. And they are there for me. Not only they support, but actually they participate in some of my activities, which is very also important. And let's take it to the other side now. Why others are not like me? And it's because of the extremists. And then when I say it's because of the extremists, it's because of the extremists from both sides. Okay? When I say both sides, it's the extremists from the Arab society and the extremists from the Jewish society. And I want to tell you why we actually know that we are on the right path. You know, when I founded the organization Together Vouch for Each Other, and this is the time to talk a bit about the organization, to say that this is an Israeli-Arab organization, that the mission and the target of this organization is to bring the Arab society closer to the Israeli society, to be an integral part of the Israeli society. We believe in the national service, Shurut Leumi. Our motto is to serve the country and at the same time to serve the society, our society. And we believe that we need to treat our main problems, such as violence against women, illegal weapons. We want better infrastructures, better education systems. And we were founded because we know that our political leaders are not doing the job. They are not doing the job, and I'm sure there's gonna come a question about, so why we keep voting for them. I will answer that later if there is, and there is an explanation. And this organization as well, as minorities, as Israeli Arabs, we go and speak about Israel. I've been myself and some of the volunteers. We went to South Africa, United States, Canada, Europe, to speak the truth about Israel and show the facts and criticize when there is things to criticize. We're not afraid of that. As citizens, I think I say that we are obligated even to criticize as citizens, because that's what defines us. That's what makes us better citizens as well. So we are not afraid of criticism about Israel. This is the way that we do with the organization. The board of the organization, it's amazing because the mixture is, you have women and men, Muslims, Bedouin, Christians, Druze, and Jewish, although it's an Arab organization. And I started talking about the organization because I wanted to answer the question, why or how do we know that we are on the right path? And we know that then because when those sides, the extreme sides here and the extreme sides here, literally joined forces together against us, then we understood that we're on the right path. And I'll tell you why. Because for the Jewish extremists, we are actually demolishing everything they believed in, which is that the Arab Israelis don't want to be part of the Israeli society and they don't want to be an Israelis. And I'm showing everybody day by day how it is the opposite. There was a survey 3 months ago by the Democratic Institute asking Israeli Arabs, how do you define yourself? And they give them 4 choices: Palestinians, Arabs, Israelis, or Arab Israelis. More than 76% answered either Israeli or Israeli Arabs. Only 9% answered Palestinians. Now, you will not hear that in the media, in the news, but I'm gonna shout it out loud. And this shatters all the belief of the extremists on the Jewish side. On the other hand, let's take the extremist Arab. Why we're actually shattering and demolishing everything they believe in? Because we are showing them that the absolute most of the Jewish society in Israel are not racists. And they want the Arab society to be part of the Israeli society. They want that. And they don't know how to eat it. They don't know how to handle it. Because when I come and I show them how the Jewish society wants us to be integrated, they don't know how to react.
Yosef, can I just ask a follow-up question? What you quoted now, there were several polls showing exactly what you just helped us to understand. Over 70%, even in 2 or 3 polls, of Israeli Arabs identify either Israelis or Israeli Arabs and not as Palestinians, which has been the narrative in the West, by the way.
Definitely.
And I want to ask you why. What is it that has changed that many Israeli Arabs want to become Israeli, identify with Israel? What has happened in recent years?
Okay, we must understand one thing. It's very important to keep our being proud as Arabs, being proud and you know, connected to our traditions, and obviously if we put that in consideration, the Israeli Arabs are really proud of their identity, of who they are. And I'm talking about everybody, Jews, Christians, Muslim, and Bedouin. The reason is hidden with the young generation. I call it that the young generation are going through something as Israelization. It's a process of Israelization. Let's go to beginning of, or the Independence Day of Israel, okay? In 48, there was a war. 52, 67, 73, okay? All those generation, the older generation, passed so many wars. But if we take the young generation, I'm talking about the 80s, the 90s, and what's coming after, we didn't really go through what they went through, okay? And for us, by the way, for some of our, for older generation, at some point, I think it was until the 60s, the late 60s, the Israeli Arabs, they were not freely walking in Israel, okay? But then us, we didn't feel that. Since I was born, I was free. Since I was born, I went and traveled wherever I want, and obviously with the social media and with everything going on with the world, it made the Israeli Arabs more and more open, first to explore themselves, and second, to be more connected with the Jewish society. We've seen that more and more Israeli Arabs from the young generation working with Jewish working with Arabs, going and having coffee together, eating together, traveling together. So all this picture, all this situation makes it like this, that there's a lot of Israelis that are very proud, Arab Israelis, very proud of being Israelis. And I was shocked. I'm gonna tell you something, guys. 2 days ago, I decided to join the platform, the TikTok platform, because I heard that there is a lot of anti-Semitism and a lot of anti-Israeli activity there. And I decided to join and to see what the fuss about. I did one simple video where I'm saying that I'm an Arab from, and then there's like a bunch of flags. I took the, like, from Lebanon, from Egypt, from Palestine, and I took them off, and then I said, no, I'm from Israel. It went viral, okay? And then I saw on the comments, with the comments that saying Palestine, 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 but there was a lot of comments of Israeli Arab writing in Arabic and saying, yeah, I am proud being Israeli. That's huge, because as I said before that, you wouldn't talk about it. And now there's more and more voices. Mm-hmm. And such a platform like this, that's huge. That's really huge. And you know what, Dan? I want to go back. I have to tell this story because this is a really important story. Everybody should hear that, because when I talk about anti-Semitism and when I talk about racism, I always say it comes from ignorancy. And I have a simple example, small example. One about a Jewish student and one about an Arab student. And I think it will reveal everything and it will make everyone understand why we need to do that more and in a bigger picture. I went to speak in front of Jewish pre-military school. And it was a kid at the age of 18, barely 18, a year later going to the army. And when I came, he came to me, he approached me, and he said, I knew you're coming to lecture. I Googled you, and I just want to tell you, you are an Arab. For me, all Arabs are terrorists. And then he added the sentence, a good Arab is a dead Arab. Then I asked him one question. How many Arab friends you have? Do you want to try and guess what was his answer? 0. None. Actually, I was the first Arab that he talked to. I asked him to sit down and to listen to my lecture. After an hour, he came to me, he hugged me, he apologized, and today he is one of my activists in our organization. Now, almost same story. I went to speak in a high school in Nazareth. An 11th grade kid comes to me and he says, you are a traitor. You love Jews more than your own people. You're a traitor, and you know what? You should be punished. I asked him a simple question. Why you say that? And before you answer why you say that, answer me how many Jewish friends you have. By now, I think everybody guessed it was the same answer as the Jewish kid. 0. I told him, sit down, listen to my lecture. After the lecture, I approached him and I invited him to join one of our activities. Today, he is one of the leaders of the volunteers in our organization. Every time I tell the story, and every time we do a meeting and there is an activity to do, both of them, they are first to pair and to work together. The Jewish kid that was very extreme, calling me a terrorist, and the Arab kid that was very extreme, calling me a traitor. This is the Israeli society in small picture. We need to do this more. We need to reveal the truth about the Jewish society, Israeli Jewish society, and about the Israeli Arab society more, and we need to be together. That's why we picked this name, together. Arivim ze leze, vouch for each other. And I think I really wanted everybody to hear this small story about our society.
It's a great story, Yoseph. It's a wonderful story. And in fact, I think what the name of the organization, which is Aravim ze leze, is an extraordinary title because, you know, in our holy tradition, in the Mishnah, it says, Kol Yisrael Aravim ze beze. So it means that every Jew, meaning the simple understanding is that every Jew is responsible for one another. But in this understanding, it says every Israeli is responsible for one another, which is a really beautiful, inclusive way of understanding a 2,000-year text.
The name of our organization actually came from one of my commanders, Ro'i Klein. For those who don't really know Ro'i Klein is an Israeli hero that decided to, in the middle of the war, the Second Lebanon War, decided to jump on a grenade in order to save his crew. That was my commander. He is my hero. He is a hero. That is the actual definition. When you say a hero, you literally just put Ro'i Klein next to it. And why the name came from this? Because a year before the war, me and Ro'i, we were in an ambush, an activity on the border between Lebanon and Israel. And during an activity such like an ambush, you have a very quiet time until some action happens, and you find yourself talking a lot. So we found ourselves in a really unreal situation where two soldiers one from the Israeli Arab Society, one from a settler from Eli with a yarmulke on his head, and talking to each other. And he told me, after I told him a little bit about my traditions and my society, and then he told me a little bit about his traditions and his society, he told me, Yosef, listen, I am going to say the sentence that Dan, you said, which he told me. There's a sentence in Chazal, Kol Yisrael arivim ze b'ze, and basically it says that if we take it to the Chazal explanation, that everyone should keep the mitzvot even outside of the land of Israel, and there is a religious explanation. But then he looked at me and he said, I don't want you to take it to the religion place. I want you to take it to the reality. Make sure that kulanu arivim ze leze. We are arivim ze leze. And yeah, because I know that I would have died for him in the battlefield as he would have died for me in the battlefield. And I'm an Arab and he's a Jew. But we're Israelis. We are Israelis. And I didn't really know how effect it will be in me, this sentence. Just years later, when we sit down for the first time, everyone together, to decide the name of the organization, we kept doing this. By the way, this is the symbol of our organization, because we kept doing this all the time. So I said, okay, together, but together is not enough. And then we start thinking, what we're gonna say, what we're gonna do, what's the other name, what's the additional name? And it hit me. And I remember telling everybody, we were like eight, 9 people in the room, and I said, everybody quiet. I got the name. And I just remember Roy Klein saying to me, Arivim ze leze, and it actually was it's this, because one, Arivim, which is vouch, you can read it as Aravim, which is Arabs. So there's like a playing with the word as well. So it was like a perfect. And for me, it's very important because this is my way to remember Roy Klein and his values, high values. Because for me, Roy Klein is the typical incredible Israeli. And this is what the values that I want for my organization. And that's how we came with the name. Together, vouch for each other. Biyachad, arivim, aravim, ze leze.
You know, Yosef, it's just a beautiful description. And I can tell you that the Israel Tennis and Education Center, this wonderful organization that I want to take you to the courts in Haifa and Yerushalayim and all over Israel. We try to live up to the values and the principles and the stories that you talked about now for 25 minutes. And we have someone on the call that I'd like on behalf of all of us to introduce to you, because he's a very special young man by the name of Shadi Al-Turi. He's an alumni, he's a graduate of the program. He's a superb international level tennis player from the Bedouin community in the south of Rahat. And Shadi, you're with us, yeah?
Yes, I'm with him.
So, Shadi, can you tell us a little bit about your story? Because you have a unique story, a dramatic story, and you're really one of the great success stories of Israel. And as you yourself now apply to university, right, in the United States for a scholarship,
Yep.
As an Israeli, as a member of the Bedouin community, and bringing great pride to Rahat as well to all of Israel. So tell us a little bit about yourself and your story, and how the tennis center played into some of what Yosef told us about his own experience in Israel.
First of all, I want to thank everyone again for joining us on this call. And Yosef, everything you told us is like matching everything I say to the people here in Israel and also in the States, because I come to the States a lot to exhibitions and to share my story about the relationships that should be in Israel between Arabs and Jews. So I'm 20 years old, from Rahat, a Bedouin city down south. You know, as a young kid living in an Arab society, you hear about a lot of things about Jews, that you need to hate Jews, you need to not interact with Jews, and those kind of things. In Israel, in the south part, Arabs are different than the north part. They are so close, and they don't interact with Jewish people a lot. So for me, being with Jews in a very young age, at the age of 8 or 7, something like this, my father just throw me to the tennis center and do anything, just leave me and leave all the bad things and all the bad people and Rahat. And the first thing that I got from the tennis center is friendship from people, from Jewish people, from Jewish kids, and not from Arabs. So for me, it was like an amazing feeling. And in the same time, I was very afraid to come back home and to tell my friends or from school or something like this, that I have Jewish friends, which is very weird. But through the years, I started playing their tennis, and through the year after year, I started to play tennis better and better. And my brother and sister also came after me, and people saw how this organization changed our lives and show the people that we should live together with Jewish, because this is not a good thing is to hate and hate and hate. We are in the same country, and we need to live together. We need to live together to show the world and to show the neighbors, our neighbors in Palestine or in Lebanon and Syria, that we can live together, Jews and Arab. And this is in Israel. And Israel should be a very big example. And yeah, today I'm very. I had a huge impact on sharing this story, sharing the peace story between Arabs and Jews in Israel to all the people I know, Jews, Arabs in the States, that at the end we are the same people, just different religions, cultures, but we need to live together. At the end, we are human beings, and we need it. We need it.
Shadi, tell us about your tennis a little bit. Where are you applying to school? How is it going with the United States? How are you preparing yourself for a possible scholarship, and how is that going?
Actually, I was planning 2 years ago to apply for scholarship to the States, but things changed because I had a lot of problems in my family, financial problems. We didn't have enough money, not for me, for my sister and brother, to try to give them money and to continue playing tennis and get pro, and to try to give them anything to succeed in tennis. So I was off tennis. I was working a lot. I was 18 or 17. I was working a lot to try to achieve my brother and sister's dream to become successful tennis players, and they are. My sister is #1 in Israel, as well. My brother Samer Altouri and my sister is Karin Altouri. My sister, she's top 50 in the world in her under 12 ranking, which is amazing. And I'm so happy to be part of the movement and the success of them. And now we are in a good place. I mean, the coronavirus came in the wrong way, and everything stopped. But yeah, right now everything is coming back, and hopefully and the scholarship and the scholarship will be in my hand, and I will start studying in the States.
Well, you're deeply inspiring to all of us, deeply inspiring, and we thank you for your sharing with us. I'm going to open it up for questions and comments from iTech family. Jackie, perhaps you'll manage the question and comment, but anything you have for Shadi or his brothers or sisters or Yosef, please ask away.
Okay, I have one question that's come in. If other people would like to send the questions through the chat feature, feel free. Larry Marks is asking Yoseph a question for you. One of Israel's challenges is recruiting technical staff for the technical business startups. He's heard that young Israeli Arabs are getting technical educations in order to meet this need and to obtain well-paying jobs. Have you found this to be true among your friends who are your age? And can you tell us a little bit about that, please?
Yeah, well, what we're saying is that again, it's mostly the young generation. We're seeing, first of all, it's an opportunity actually for me, for instance, to talk about Shadi, because as a 20-year-old Israeli from Rahat, and we've seen that he has ambition to succeed, and I believe that that he represents today the young generation of the Israeli Arabs, both like all together. Bedouin, Jewish, Christians, Muslims, and Druze. So yeah, to answer the question, definitely we're seeing more and more Israeli Arabs going that path. Basically, in the past, the Israeli Arabs would go, for instance, to work in buildings and constructions, and the young generation said it's enough. We're not because we are an Arabs. This is what we do, or we understand. We need to do other things, and we've seen that. We've seen the young generations are actually working in high tech technology companies. It's not enough yet. It's not enough yet, but it is increasing, and that's something that we are welcoming, and we are working for it. We must say that again. If you remember at the beginning of the conversation, I said we need a better education system, and it's something that we're working on, because another information for you guys, the budget per Jewish student to an Arab student in Israel is huge. For instance, the budget for a Jewish student is about, if it's in dollars, we can say around $10,000. While for the Arab students, it's around $6,500, which is a huge difference. We need to balance that as fast as we can to give opportunities to Israeli Arabs to be more with more opportunities and to be successful. And it's actually something that it's very important for the Israeli society, because when 20% of the society are succeeding, it's actually Israeli society in general are succeeding. So yes, there is not enough. We're working on it.
Thank you. Yosef, could you tell us a little bit more about what your organization does to help promote equality in that arena, in the educational arena?
Okay, I'm gonna surprise you, because when you talk about equality, it's the first thought is like we're talking about the Israeli Arabs not being equal, not being that they are there's racism and we need to work for that. And okay, I'll give you an example of, obviously there is some of that are obviously true and we are working on it. But I want to go and talk about something that we do in terms of how we bridge between the gaps and how we actually want the Arab society to be more open for the Jewish society. And I'll give you the best example. Last January, not last year, in January 2 years ago, I was in Miami. I was a key speaker in the ceremony for the remembrance of the Holocaust, International Holocaust Day. And I spoke in front of Holocaust survivors. And I promised them that I will bring the Holocaust story and to remember the Holocaust in the Arab-Israeli society as well, because unfortunately we are not doing it enough. In our education system, we learn about the Holocaust, but as a small section in a bigger subject, which is the World War II. After that, 3 months later, for the first time, we held something called a memory in the living room. It's a huge thing in Israel, huge thing. And for the first time, we did it in our society, in the Arab society, where we brought a witness to talk in front of Christians, Jews, and the Muslims about the Holocaust. 1 year later, which was exactly about 4 months ago, we were supposed to hold 44 events in the Arab society, but because of the Corona pandemic, we didn't do it. But we did it through Zoom, and we said we're gonna just hold two Zoom conference. That's it. But after that, after those 2 sessions, I kept getting more and more demands, and we opened 20 more with the Jewish and Arabs participating, and we brought a witness to talk about what's going on, what happened in the Holocaust. And not only that, we brought an ex-Nazi that he converted and now he's Jewish to actually speak about that, which was crazy, and people went crazy about that. And that was a successful project that we did. And for the next year, we're aiming for higher, and we want actually to conduct and to make an official ceremony in one of the Arab cities or villages. So this is something that we are doing because we want to reveal more and more about the Jewish society. In the other hand, what we are doing in terms of equality for the Israeli Arabs, well, one of the things that we're talking about right now is we know that there is a language barrier. Mm-hmm. I always say that every Jew in Israel should learn Arabic. Because when you learn Arabic and you know the Arabic language, you will not be afraid from us. Do you want to hear a funny story? Well, actually, it is a funny story now, but I took the bus with my friend. And we spoke in Arabic. In front of us sat down a Jewish. He looked at us and he was very respectful. But he looked at us and he said, "Can I be honest with you guys?" I said, "Yeah, sure, why not?" He said, "I'm afraid." And I said, "Why you're afraid?" He said, "Because when you speak in Arabic, I immediately think about terrorists." And I told him, if you would have understand what we were talking about, you would literally understand that we're talking about how it's bad that there's no air conditioner in the bus, that we're stuck in traffic, and that we really want to eat hummus because we were very hungry. Yeah. He laughed and he said, "I know." I immediately told him, "Go, learn Arabic. Learn Arabic." What I'm trying to say is that we are trying to promote this. We have connections with the Knesset. We are not a political organization, but we work with politics in order for us to advance equality and to talk about it and to bridge between the gaps. We talk with everyone. We don't care about left or right. It doesn't matter for us. Anyone who believes in our agenda, anyone who believes that can contribute and give us what we want and need, and basically it's for the best or for the interest of the Israeli society, we will work with them. And this is something that we're doing also in the political genre, and we will keep doing that. And obviously this is like just small examples. We did so many things in the last 2 years that I can keep going on and on, but I mean, I will take a whole day.
Well, we'd love to hear more about that. Kol hakavod for everything you're doing. It's Israel Tennyson Education Center stands for the same exact principles as you do. We are open to serve children of all backgrounds.
Amazing.
All religions, races, socioeconomic levels, and I think we have a lot more to talk about in the future together.
Definitely.
I have another question for you, Yoseph, from Ron Eisenberg. He'd like to understand whether demographically is the Israeli Arab population growing as compared to the Jewish population in Israel?
Well, let's talk about the numbers. Right now we have about 21% of the Israelis are Israeli Arabs. It's about 2 million to 6.5 million, something like this, to 7 million Jewish. In the Israeli Arab society, you have 1.5 million Muslims, Israeli Arab Muslims. You have 45,000 Christians, 145,000 Druze, and 130,000 Bedouin. The Bedouins are Muslims, but they are tribes. Basically, most of them are in the south of Israel. Shadi can actually talk about it more and more. And as I said, there is an Israelization going on, especially with the young generation. And what I always like to talk about when I speak about the Israeli Arab society, that we are seeing that the Israeli Arab society, in terms of numbers, and I will talk about specifically the Christian community, because we are seeing that Christian community in the Arab world are going and decreasing from year to year, while in Israel it's increasing from year to year. This is something important to realize, because it's important to talk about it. It's important to reveal how Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East, how Israel gives free of practice your own religion. And there is problems. I'm not saying there's not problems. There is problems, but I always like to, like it's like in the song, always look at the bright side of life. So we're looking at the bright side of life, and there is a lot to look here in Israel. The other side, we are working to make it better and better. That's it, basically.
Okay, thank you. You have a call kavod from Larry Marks. He says that your voice needs to be heard at every American college right now. There's only one of you. How can we clone you?
How? Oh, we clone you. Well, Larry, listen. I'm not alone. Yes, I am speaking out loud. More and more are joining and speaking out loud. But trust me, I am not alone. And I can honestly tell you that not only I'm not alone in terms of with my society, but with the Jewish society. I mean, that's actually what keeps us more motivated, because we've seen that. You should see, for instance, if you go to my Facebook page, I have like over 45,000 followers. A lot of them were Jewish. And you should see their comments. You should see, okay, I'll tell you something amazing about it. 5 days ago, I got a message from a Syrian person from Syria, a guy from Syria. And he told me like this: we grew up hating Israel. That's our education. But then I met you and I started following you. But you didn't change my mind. Do you know who changed my mind? I said, talking to him, yeah, tell me. He said, your followers. I saw the Jewish people commenting and loving you and supporting your ideas. And it completely changed my mind about Jewish and about Israel. Crazy. Crazy. That's the reality that I want to pass to everyone. I'm not alone. Not alone.
You know,
you have the ITech as well, and you're the poster board for fighting BDS. Dan, did you want to ask one last question?
I just wanted to say to Larry is that, one of the reasons that we thought it would be a good idea to bring Yoseph into our family, and because the ITech concept of Israeli tennis and education, Yoseph represents the best of the E of ITech. And there are all kinds of possibilities for us in developing joint programming for Jewish and Arab children, so that the knowledge, the deep knowledge and passion of the truth that Yoseph brings to the Israeli conversation and needs to be exported, as Larry suggested, to every university and even beyond, into the political realm and into the academic realm and into the civil society realm, that's the way to clone, to clone both Shadi and Yosef, and we can do that at ITech with partners just like Yosef, and it's just a question of putting our heads together and resourcing such a thing, but we can do it, and it would be a transformative, revolutionary development for Israel.
Thank you. Wendy?
Yosef, thank you so much. I just have to add one thing. When the first time I met an Arab Israeli was at our center a few years ago. And it was a father of a family, his two boys go to the center. Like, I'm getting emotional because I had never met an Israeli Arab before. And I left feeling hope. He thanked us, like, to take care of his children and for all the families that he met. And it really was an incredible experience for me. And Shadi, like, I just smile seeing you, Shadi. Shadi has been at my Shabbat table in New York. Like, we are just like one family, and it's really, really beautiful. So I thank you. And I just want to tell everyone, we have received so many beautiful emails from you about our Lunch and Learn series, like indicating how vital iTech services are to the children at risk in Israel. And we would greatly appreciate your urgent support of iTech's Children's Emergency Relief Fund to save one or more children from social isolation, anxiety, and depression during the pandemic. Your support will provide tablets so children in need can access iTech's online mental health sessions, return to the iTech for tennis, fitness, and socialization, and play like normal children. You can go to our website to donate or call Jackie Glodstein. And thank you so much for your support. And also save the date for our next Lunch and Learn, September 9th. And like, this was amazing. So thank you all.
Thank you, Wendy. That was beautiful.
Thank you, everyone. Stay well. Enjoy the rest of the summer.
Thank you, everyone. It was a pleasure.
Looking
Thank
forward
you,
to
Yosef.
working together,
Toda
Yosef. Toda.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Lahirot.